On Wednesday, Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, they expanded on their report, talking about a prolonged strain between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni during the 2023 campaign, where one source told ESPN that the Sirianni-Hurts relationship became, quote, fractured and unhealthy as the Eagles fell from 10-1 to 11-6, and this was the quote, "There was never a moment last year where they were operating in a healthy relationship," the ESPN source said about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I want to know, though, do you think, after it seems like things have cooled since last season, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts were asked about this situation and kind of sidestepped it a little bit, do you think they'll have a bounce back year after completely falling apart last year?
I think they will, because I think they've added Saquon Barkley, and I think that's going to make a difference for them. And I think Saquon Barkley is on a mission, and I think that the tools are around him to help him perform much better than he did with the Giants, and he performed very well with the Giants when he was healthy, because they can't scheme against just him. And with the Giants, sometimes he looked like the only piece out there. And so I think that that's going to have a factor. I also think that the Eagles last year, there was an issue with the head coach, putting too much pressure on the players because they made it to the Super Bowl in the prior year. There was some talk that even when they were 10-1, they still remembered losing the Super Bowl, and they were depressed, and that's hard to believe when you're 10-1. But that comes from the coach, and the coach, I think, recognized that. And at the very first practice in the mandatories, he said to the players that last year was on me, on my shoulders. I didn't get it done. He took full responsibility. He said I didn't empower the players. It was passionate and it was from the heart. He's usually a boisterous, emotional, brash guy. His goal was to show accountability and stress the need for others to do the same. And it showed leadership, and I think that was important. I think that resonated with the players. They probably weren't expecting that, because they did start out 10-1 last year, and it wasn't like the players were having any fun, they said, and then they went 1-6 to end the year, and that definitely was on the coaching staff. I mean, the defensive coordinator situation where the guy went upstairs and
Sean Desai,
and Matt Patricia was calling the plays on defense. The defense didn't play well after that started happening, and they just kind of collapsed, and they lost their wild card game against the Buccaneers. There's grumbling on the sidelines, and there's a disconnect in the vision about the offense between Sirianni and Hurts. And they say that Hurts lacked respect for the head coach because of that disconnect. And now they've got a new offensive coordinator. We'll see if he can try to bridge the gap between the two.
Well, that is what a nice quote said. And then this is the direct quote. There is hope that new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore can bridge the gap between the two, as one source close to Hurts put it. Both Hurts and Sirianni made efforts to take accountability and mend fences this offseason, but their next stress test will have Sirianni coaching for his job and Hurts fighting to reclaim MVP form on a team desperate to return to the Super Bowl. What I find crazy is that Rex Ryan recently went on the Brett Boone podcast and had a comment about this situation between Hurts and Sirianni, but actually extends a little bit beyond just those two, where he's saying, and I quote, "I don't think I've ever seen a team that absolutely showed that they hated their coaches more than the Philadelphia Eagles last year. They were 10-1 at some point, and then they couldn't beat anybody. They were the worst team in the league to close out the season with outstanding players," and that is 100% true. They had one of the best defenses to begin the year, with a number of top superstars: Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, the rookie. Your cornerbacks were supposed to be great, and all of a sudden, that run was like they were the bottom of the league in a bunch of defensive categories. It was embarrassing. The chemistry was way off. It looked like it really looked like Nick Sirianni just completely lost the locker room. We even saw early in the season. And not only was it just Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, we saw against the Minnesota Vikings, I think it was in week 2 of last year, A.J. Brown barking at other Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni or both of them on the sideline, and they were winning. They were winning. Think about that. Your culture within the locker room, you're complaining about, I don't know, targets, catches, I'm not entirely sure, but you're winning and you're complaining. I think that's a situation, absolutely. I think that just shows that they all want it in for themselves. There's no real chemistry going on there. But I do think that they need to bounce back. Otherwise, the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't care about the recent record. In the past couple of seasons, they went 9-8, 14-3, made the Super Bowl, and then 11-6. I think Nick Sirianni's coaching for his job. He might not be on a flaming hot seat, but I do think his seat is relatively warm. And I think if you have the opportunity to go out and get a Hall of Fame head coach, one that doesn't need to do any roster moves because, the Eagles have one of the best general managers in the league of Howie Roseman. And, quarterback in place, defense is relatively good, could be coached a little bit better. You have a couple star receivers, tight end not too bad in Dallas Goedert, offensive line already great. What head coach could potentially come into this situation and make the Eagles, a serious Super Bowl contender?
Bill Belichick.
Exactly. And I think that, because I do think there was serious inquiries this offseason because of just how bad the downfall was last year. That if Bill Belichick does want to coach, and all signs are pointing to he does.
Of course he does.
And if this team, it doesn't matter. I don't care if they go 10-7. I don't care if they go 11-6. It could be a Cowboys situation. You go 12-5. If there is no chemistry, if it seems like everybody in the locker room is just gone, I don't care about the record. The only thing that I think would keep Sirianni's job fully intact with no chinks in the armor.
Deep playoff run,
Super Bowl appearance, and probably winning a Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, winning the Super Bowl, of course.
But I think if there is no chemistry within the locker room, I think that the front office, the owner, they're going to look at it and be like, hey, I can go get a head coach who keeps everything in line, who can coach up an offensive line. Okay, if he has the right pieces in place and he's not the one picking them, that's the key right there. If he's not the one picking them, Howie Roseman's a phenomenal GM. He makes contract offers for top-tier players and makes it all work, and everyone's sitting back and like, how the hell is he doing this? Defense has a bunch of key playmakers. He loves his interior D lineman. Who's a great interior D lineman right now for the Philadelphia Eagles? Jalen Carter. You have a lot of good pieces on defense. You have already a really good starting base. It's the same thing with the Chargers. That's why I thought Belichick with the Chargers would be a good move, because you already have a good starting base. You have a lot of already the key things in place.
It's not happening.
I'm just saying, if Belichick comes in, I think there is no doubt.
To the Eagles, but he's not going to the Chargers. They just hired
I'm saying when they were looking for a head coach, a lot of the baseline things were already in. A really great defense that was undercoached to an exponential degree. Offensive line that already had a couple nice pieces like Rashawn Slater. Already a star quarterback. A couple good receiving pieces at the time before Mike Williams and Keenan Allen left. That was a good base already. Belichick would come in and improve that. The Eagles are the same thing, except I actually think a little bit better because they have more of what the Chargers could have used, I think. Yeah. They already have more. You have receivers. You have a tight end. You have a quarterback. You have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. And if Belichick gets there next year, he still have 2 more years left on the deal, so you'll have him at least for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think the offense should be great this year, right?
It should be.
Adding Barkley and bringing back all those pieces. The wide receivers are elite, both wide receivers. The quarterback is a potential all-pro and MVP candidate. They can do the mix and match on the offense with some running. Jalen Hurts is a very capable runner, and he can throw well to those elite wide receivers. Saquon Barkley in the mix now with a very good offensive line. The defense may not have to be that great. It may not get out on the field very much.
Well, I think you go in and you look at Saquon Barkley's potential production and look at the schedule. Based on last year's numbers, now obviously it goes year to year. Based on last year's rushing defense, their current 2024-25 opponents average the 19th best rush defense in the NFL, based on last year's metrics.
What are the schedule?
You want to go through it week by week and say who wins and loses?
Let's go with it. Win and loss.
Win and loss. All right, let's go. So week 1, home against the Packers.
Home against the Packers. Wow. I give them that win. Yeah.
Home against the Falcons.
Yep.
At Saints.
Yep.
At Bucks.
Yes.
Bye week 5, home against the Browns.
Home against the Browns. Yep.
Correct. At Giants.
Yes.
At Bengals.
No.
Home against the Jaguars.
Yep.
At Cowboys.
No.
Nope. Home against the Commanders.
Yes.
At Rams.
I think they might lose that one.
At Ravens.
No.
Home against the Panthers.
Yes.
Home against the Steelers.
Yep.
At Commanders.
Yes.
Home against the Cowboys.
Yes.
And then home against the Giants.
13 wins.
And what's crazy, you picked them to lose every single game that they're underdogs in. They're underdogs against the Bengals, Cowboys, Rams, and Ravens.
See? I know how to pick them.
Well, I think you go up against... They definitely have a top 5 offensive line still. I know the loss of Jason Kelce could be massive, especially if you want to keep doing the tush-push. But I think you have a top 5 offensive line. You have a top 5 running back in the league when healthy. That's what I think Saquon when healthy, especially behind this offensive line, could have a massive impact. The question is first of all, is Jalen Hurts healthy? Because we saw last year, it did not look like he was 100%. But he played through it anyway. He wasn't good enough. He wasn't hurt enough to be out.
Yeah, well,
and so I have to judge you based on your production when you're out there.
Don't worry, they got Kenny Pickett as the backup.
He was there. He was literally with the Steelers for 2 years, and they decided to get rid of him.
Yeah. He
was the only first-round quarterback, and he wasn't even that good. But think about it, though. They added a couple good pieces. Bryce Huff from the Jets was a great pickup. Saquon Barkley, great pickup. They got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back as well. They also have Devin White from the Buccaneers, linebacker. That's pretty good. Then what did they do in the draft? They got 2 of the top cornerbacks in Cooper DeJean as well as Quinion Mitchell, who we both had in the first round. Cooper DeJean went in the second round. So they have 2 top cornerbacks, and cornerback was a situation where they were surprisingly poor in.
They definitely tried to beef up the defense.
Absolutely. Last year they were 31st in pass defense, which was shocking when you look at who they had. It just everyone looked washed at that point. So I think if you're the Eagles, you go out there and you're like, well, we have a new running back. Offensive line, center position, not great. Although Cam Jurgens is not anything to just laugh at. He's not a bad center at all. Offensive line should be good. Running back, new. 2, you still have your 2 top receivers in A.J. Brown as well as Devontae Smith. Your defensive line is still relatively good.
I think Devontae Smith is underrated.
Absolutely. I mean, he got an extension, I'm pretty sure, either this or last year. He's definitely worth the value. He's made some absolutely crucial plays. I think the Eagles are going to be a great team. I do think the streak continues in the NFC East with not having the same winner. What is it, for 16 straight years now or something like that, where they have not had a repeat winner? I think this will go again where the Eagles win this time instead of the Dallas Cowboys.
We'll see. And I agree that if Sirianni blows it, he's done, and Belichick will be the next coach.
Define blow it. Well, what would in your
blow it would mean losing in the first round of the playoffs.
Imagine if it was to Baker Mayfield again if he somehow gets back there. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
If they lose 4 straight games after being, let's say they go 9-2, and you start losing 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row, I have no doubt in my mind Nick Sirianni will be fired at that time.
Before the end of the season, you think?
If you go up 9-2 or have another 10-1 season and you start losing games you should win, and some of them are bad losses too, embarrassing losses.
I mean, their record, their schedule is not that challenging.
Correct.
Right?
They have the 9th easiest schedule in the NFL.
Yeah.
And also, Vic Fangio. How do you like him?
I mean, they got 4 wins easy in their own division, right? The Giants and the Commanders.
Right. I think Vic Fangio, not a horrible DC. He was just with Miami. Not bad. Miami had the 10th overall defense in the league. You also have Kellen Moore. Great with the Cowboys. Goes to the Chargers. Banged up receivers, running back, couldn't run anymore. Austin Eckler just can't run anymore. They had the worst rushing attack last year. Justin Herbert also dealing with an injury, so maybe it's a wash at that point. You go over to the Eagles. Can he replicate what Shane Steichen brought to Jalen Hurts? If he can bring that back, Jalen Hurts will be an MVP candidate. He will have a deep playoff run. And as long as he's healthy, should be relatively consistent as well. It's just about health. It's about scheme, because we look at what the loss of Shane Steichen did last year. You bring in Brian Johnson, and all of a sudden the offense looks not great.
Saquon Barkley is
Confusing.
definitely an upgrade over Swift.
Interesting. I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
I think that's a very important pickup for them. And I think he's going to have a great year if he can stay healthy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.